Rachel, it's my count looks like we have a quorum. Is that you? Am I counting correctly?
We do.
Okay. Well, my computer says it's 10 o'clock, so we will call the meeting to order. And I will ask for a motion to approve our agenda.
I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
This second. Okay. Any further discussion? None. Okay. Motion carries. And now we'll move right on to the election of the chair and vice chair. So I would open the meeting to nominations. And I would like to nominate Brad Thurman as our chair for this upcoming year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. Any other nominations out there? Okay. Give everybody a chance. No, going once, going twice. Okay, looks like we have one nomination for chair, Brad Thurman. Oh, I touched my screen here. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Well, congratulations, Brad. I'll just go ahead and pass you the gavel. And I'll let you carry on.
Well, thanks, Alan. Thanks for handing that to me. I appreciate that. So. All right. Well, first thing, maybe we just started the first year. Maybe we just clarify, at least for this meeting, and then moving ahead, who's going to be on the board. I know for the county, I have a seat, and Dennis Weber is chairman of the board of county commission. Will also be occupying a seat for the county. Kurt, do you want to talk about Longview, who your representatives are and alternates?
Well, currently the alternate is Mayor Mary Alice Wallace, and she's with us here today. We actually have our retreat scheduled for February 12th, and it's at that retreat where council has that conversation and assignments for various boards and commissions. So we'll know at that time who our representative will be in the alternate. But for now, Mary Alice will be filling the chair until such time as we decide that at the retreat.
Okay, then it's also you, and then I guess Jim Cambites,
Yes,
and then the Chief Huda is the alternate for Jim for this year. Is that correct?
correct. And Jim, do you know when your seat expires?
These are 2-year terms, correct?
Correct?
So it would be the end of 22.
Okay. All right.
Well, thank you. And with Kelso, City Manager Andrew Hamilton is a Kelso seat. And Alan has a seat for Cowlitz too.
Right.
And I know today, Bill Lamons is the small fire representative. Do you have an alternate, Bill?
Well, technically Vic is until he retires in April, but we're working on trying to get the small fire districts commissioners together to get the replacement before Vic is retired.
Okay. And then I know I talked to Jim Kelly from Woodland. He's here representing the small city police departments. Ralph Herrera is primary, but he couldn't make it today. So Jim, I know, is the alternate for that group. So since we've cleared the air on that, we can move ahead.
Chairman,
Yes.
so the alternate for Kelso would be Chief Darkirk.
Okay. And do you have an alternate, Alan, for District 2? Since we're
Yeah, Scott Neves.
okay. And for myself, Chief Troy Brightbill would fill in my absence for the county, and I'm not sure at the commissioner level. We can clarify that with Dennis. I believe he's out today or had another meeting. So, well, moving ahead on the agenda, we had the approval of meeting minutes from December 8th. You've got a chance to read those?
Excuse
Hey,
me,
Brad.
Brad.
Yes, Norm?
We still need a vice chair elected.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that might be important. Thanks, Norm. So, all righty, we'll open the floor to any nominations for the vice chair position.
Well, since he's not here, I'd nominate Commissioner Dennis Weber. He actually did chair the 911 Public Authority Board here a couple, 3 years ago, and I feel he did a good job of representing the board, so.
I'll second that.
Were there any other nominations? All righty, well, hearing none, all in favor of Dennis Weber being the vice chair, I guess, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty, well, I guess I will break the news to Dennis at some point, so.
I'll teach him
Matt?
to miss a meeting.
Hopefully it's not a shock to him, Sheriff.
He's pretty flexible, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, moving right along, approval of meeting minutes from December 8th. If you've had a chance to read those, entertain a motion. If there's no corrections or if there are, speak up.
I would move approval as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that took care of that. Item number 5, we have public comment. And if there's any, I did not see any general members of the public, but if there are, I don't know if Rachel's monitoring this or sees anybody, this would be the time to speak up.
Nothing in the chat.
All righty. We will move right along. Payables were published as part of the meeting packet. And are there any questions over any of the payables? I know I did. I'll start out with one. There was one talked about something about Warehouser and a lockbox for about $12,000. You know what that's about?
That's our annual fee we pay for one of our radio sites.
Okay. Were there any other questions on any of the payables?
No, I'd make a motion to approve the payables as presented.
Hamilton second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Then no opposed, that passes. Moving right along to number 7, format of future meetings. I know myself and Alan and Norm had an aside at a meeting here recently and just talking about that. Moving forward, I think the hope is once we move into the new 911 center, we could actually meet in person out there. In the interim, I just wanted to have some comment from the board, whether the Zoom format works or if there's a desire to actually meet in person or have a hybrid model. So be open to comments on that. Anybody's preference?
I'm good with Zoom. Right
Yeah,
now,
I'd be
Go ahead.
good either way, Sheriff. You know, I'd be open to whatever the format, you know, group at large would like to have. I would ask for one consideration, you know, maybe as you begin to work with staff on developing these agendas, if we could keep them to about an hour, hour and a half. That would suit me a little better than some. I know that we've gone over 2 hours and, you know, I know sometimes that's a challenge, but maybe there are items that could be held over perhaps to the next meeting. So that would be the only suggestion I would have if we could do that.
Okay. Is there any other comments or thoughts on that?
I guess I would like to see some sort of hybrid model eventually, you know, sooner rather than later. If that's when the new center opens, that's fine. But I think certainly having the Zoom piece available is good. But I also think that when we can meet in person, that's also a good thing. So just my thought.
Maybe just move things along. We'll continue to meet in Zoom. I'm not going to be here for the next meeting on the 26th, but maybe we can evaluate the COVID climate and where we're at in February and see if maybe we might go to a hybrid format until we get into the new center. Hopefully be enough room out there and we can meet regularly out there in person. Item number 8 is a discussion of a potential opening ceremony for the new center. And I guess ask Norm maybe to comment on that if he had any thoughts.
Well, my only real thought is it's really going to be dependent upon, what we can do with COVID. It would be nice to get, have a ceremony, have like a ribbon cutting ceremony, I would think. Invite the press. We do have a potential. There is Senate Bill 5555 that sets training standards for telecommunicators, which is basically the same as what we call dispatchers. And we have requested both of our senators representing our district to consider co-sponsoring that bill. So, my hope would be that at least one of them would do that, and we could possibly have them attend and sort of be the guest of honor type of a thing. That was kind of what my thinking was, but certainly we could do anything that this group wants to do.
Okay. Are there any further thoughts on that? I think a lot of it, of course, is going to be dependent on, I guess, restrictions on gatherings and how many people can be together at that time. Hopefully by when this comes around in June, we can meet together and do have some kind of formal ceremony anyway. If there's no further discussion, maybe we could just table that, and as we move forward, get close to the event and hopefully get an executive director on board, get them involved in that process and develop, at least have some kind of ribbon cutting. I think it'd be appropriate for a momentous event such as that. So, well, moving along, number 9, Ellen Headley. Ellen proposed number 9. And do you want to talk about that, Ellen, your idea concerning the EOC at the new center?
Yeah, I think you're all aware that we lost Randy Greeley, who was one of the most dedicated volunteers that in the county, probably of any organization, but certainly at DEM. And I know anytime that I had ever been involved in a EOC activation, Randy was always there, oftentimes his wife as well, helping to set up, running radios, doing whatever needed to be done. And I just thought that it would be fitting to dedicate the new EOC space in our new center to Randy. I think would be good to show his family and the rest of the community how much we really appreciated the level of volunteerism that he exhibited for, I don't know, probably 20 or 30 years. I just think it would be an appropriate honor.
I'll just add to that. Yeah, it was 35 plus years that Randy served as a volunteer, and it's not just an acknowledgement to Randy, but I think all our volunteers really could receive some benefit from that, honoring a volunteer and encourage volunteerism. So are there any other thoughts on this idea? Or
I know we specifically put in a ham radio section in that EOC, and maybe we could name that ham radio section portion after him? Or, make it, Greeley ham radio section? I don't know, something like that.
And I was just thinking of something in the room in general that dedicated to Randy, and maybe have a plaque or something on the wall. That was kind of was my thought, but whatever the rest of the board thinks is appropriate.
Alan, I didn't know Randy personally, but everything I've read, I think really speaks to what a stand-up citizen he was and the commitment he had to the community. And as you said, again, based upon what I garnered, he was there for whatever needed to wherever he was needed. And so, I think based upon that, I would support your recommendation as presented.
Was that a motion and a second?
Well,
I would make it a motion.
Okay, I'd second it then.
Okay, is there any further discussion on that? Well, if not, we can vote on that. All in favor of naming the EOC at the new center in honor of Randy Greeley, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, well, we will make that happen in honor of Randy. So item number 10, out of class step increase. And I know Janelle, if you want to talk about this issue and opportunity coming up.
Yeah, I can. This is in regards to one of our employees that is going to step in when another employee is leaving for a long-term medical leave. I'll kind of turn the floor over, I think, to Deanna and that employee who helped write this proposal.
Well, Bree is the public disclosure officer and an administrative assistant. From time to time when Rachel has been out of the office, Bree has stepped in to fill that critical role for things that were time sensitive. Rachel will be on PFMLA leave for about June. And Bree is gonna pick up the critical duties that need to be done, like accounts payable, receivable, the payroll, other miscellaneous things. She's been working with Rachel periodically to get up to speed on anything that's changed since the last time that she stepped into that role.
There's about 20 added duties to that, on top of everything that I handle. Just kind of giving you a scope of that increase of work. I can go over those if you want, but the payroll and accounts payable are two of the major ones.
So as you see on the screen here, what's being proposed is a temporary salary adjustment. Both these positions share the same scale. However, since she is increasing her load of work temporarily, we're asking a temporary salary adjustment from step 3 up to step 6 while covering those additional duties.
And the impact is budget neutral.
Are there any questions from the board on clarifying any of what they're proposing?
So I would have one. What's the percentage increase between a step 3 and a step 6?
Approximately 15%.
Are there any other questions of staff on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
And is there a second for this proposal? Well, hearing none, say the motion will die for lack of a second. So this point, I'd just like to welcome Commissioner Dennis Weber to the meeting. And breaking news, Dennis, since you weren't here, you were elected vice chair.
All right.
Board.
Darn it. I'm sorry I was late. I was actually presenting a proposal on the use of ARPA funds for my commissioners, and it ran a little bit longer than I expected. So,
Okay. And I got elected chairman. So
oh boy. All right.
there we go. So, okay. Well, moving along, item number 11, we'll start with the LawTAC, and Troy Brightbill is on, talk about the activities at the LawTAC level.
Yeah, we met yesterday, discussed a number of issues. Jerry filled us in on some issues, 911 calls, delays when we were having to transfer to Cressa. Some issues we're dealing with the jurisdictional boundary between Cressa's understanding and Cowlitz's. Brianna gave on the new public records request program for Cowlitz 911. That's when officers need to get recordings or copies of CAD as well as public records requests. We had an in-depth discussion about who we would allow access to our CAD calls. We've had some requests for outside agencies like the Department of Corrections. Our general consensus on that was that they're not a Cowlitz law user. They do have access to our radio frequency. They can hear if we're running somebody that's of interest to them. But they are a state agency, and if they're looking to have a CAD program, that would be probably through Washington State Patrol. It's more of a whether it's out of curiosity or actual need for their job. So the other user group that we talked about was the behavioral health units. Longview is currently using theirs, and they do need access to those calls as they're directly responding to them, and we can tailor their access to what their needs are. We discussed having a group meeting with both the law and fire TAC to discuss what calls fire wanting to view and or display at their stations. We've got some security concerns that we need to share regarding that. So hopefully I can get together with Brandon and schedule that in the near future. We discussed the Spillman Summit. There's I believe going to be 9 different staff members from all the different user agencies that are going to this for some training in April, if it doesn't get canceled again. And we also discussed with the upcoming Spillman CAD training, adding some support staff to the training roster so that they can get training for those parts of Spillman they haven't used yet. And the final thing we discussed was just our protocol during SWAT missions. We switched to another channel during those missions, but we do have the incident commander or designee at the command post monitoring the main channel and updating the dispatch main channel as needed. And we'll meet again in approximately 2 months.
Okay, well, thanks, Troy. Is there any questions for Troy? Alrighty, the fire side, it said Brandon Poff was on earlier, but I don't see him anymore. I don't know if anybody from the fire side has any insight on the fire TAC.
Yeah, we had a meeting yesterday. Unfortunately, some of the things that we wanted to discuss, we needed a supervisor from the comm center and nobody was on. So it's pretty much tabled things till next month. We're going to have another meeting. So yeah, unfortunately, we did, there were some questions that we had of either Jerry or one of the other supervisors, and we couldn't really get anything done. So hopefully we'll do better next month.
Okay, well, thanks, Bill. Next up, we have the director's report, and it's good to see Norm.
Well, it's good to be sane, I guess. Excuse me. So I am working from home. Obviously, you probably can tell that. Just very quickly, I will let you know that My wife tested positive on Monday, so I've been here, and I have since developed a couple symptoms, but took a test this morning and still tested negative. So still kind of up in limbo as far as where I'm going from here, but hope to get back soon. So we did have, a couple months ago, we had 6 trainees. We did let one go. I'm not sure if that was before or after the December meeting. And then we had one resign here in the last week. The other 4 are progressing pretty well, and we hope to get at least some of them certified as standalone dispatchers in the near future. So it's not all bad news, but we are down to 4 trainees.
Norm, what is that with the 4, if those 4 stay on, what would that put our total numbers at?
That would put us at, well, it would put us at 21 technically, but we have one on a medical leave. So right now we have 17 dispatchers with one on a medical leave, and so it would put us up to 20 really.
All right, thank you.
And Norm, I had a question as well. Based on their progression, when do you think they'd be ready to come on board?
I'm told in the next couple months, 2 to 3 months probably.
End of March, early April, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, just roughly, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have to admit, I'm not real sure what exactly to say about climate and culture. So I think unless there's questions about that, I was going to skip to the facility update. Working from home, I don't have any latest photographs to share with you, but we do have a request in regards to automatic door access openers. So it was thought, I think, waiting for this to come up, that we should install automatic door openers at the public locations. Maybe if Rachel, if you could just show that drawing, that'll be fine. I'm not sure this is the latest drawing, but we're actually looking at the 2 doorways into the public entrance as providing openers for handicapped access. These are not required by the building code, but they would be, convenient and advantageous for handicapped visitors coming in. There's also, in addition to those 2, one that kind of goes with it, which would be the entrance into the EOC room, which is not circled, unfortunately. And then there were 4 other locations that we wanted you to consider for the benefit of employees. And so it's the 2 employee entrance doors at the east end of the building. It is not the kitchen door, although that's an option, but it is one door coming out of the dispatch floor, and then the one door going into the one of the 2 handicapped rooms that has the bench seat in the shower stall. So it's 7 locations that we're talking about. The contractors indicated an approximate cost of $7,500 per door. But the process that we would go through is we would ask the architect to prepare the plans and specifications needed to make this change. And that cost would be, we're estimating $15,000 to $20,000 before we'd have the total price. So we would need to commit up to $20,000 to go through the process to get the price. And our expectation is that the total price would be around $7,500. It is a access issue. It's an issue both for the public that would be visiting the center, either coming in to do business at the lobby or entering the EOC, and it would also be for any employees that were either temporarily or permanently disabled. So that's what we are asking you to consider. And this did not work well to have it up on the screen. Do we have the document that can be put on the screen, Rachel, that kind of describes that, those costs? Okay. So this is what I've tried to describe with the drawing. I just want it to be very clear that we expect the total cost to be around $75,000, but we would need to commit $15,000 to $20,000 to actually get a cost. And we can't guarantee that the cost would be $75,000, but I think we need to be prepared to spend approximately that if we're going to pursue this. Otherwise, there's no reason to pursue it.
And Norm, is it correct? This needs to be decided pretty quick here at the construction stage where this needs to be done if we're going to do it?
If we're going to do it, we would need to do it soon, yes. And that's why it's kind of a last minute thing. It was kind of thought of somewhat last minute. I think it was when they were looking at the low voltage needs with the contractor, and the question was asked, and so we've come up with this. Really, it's a board decision. You can retrofit these in the future, probably at a higher expense. It's going to be more difficult to do it, but it's not that it can't be done. It would also probably be harder to find the funds to do this, since we're still in the project budget. So really throwing it out there for the board to consider and make a decision on.
Was there any questions of Norm on this, or I would entertain a motion reference this?
I just have one question, Norm. I guess I'm kind of making the assumption that the auto door or the power door operation or whatever works in conjunction then with the security system. So you would have to have appropriate ID to.
Yeah, yes, it would. I think that for the employees, any door that has a card reader would still require the card reader, but there would be some way to actuate the automatic opening. For the public entrance, that access is controlled by the reception desk, and so they would be the one that would actually actuate the opening of the doors. Typically, they would just unlock the doors and let people in. So, but in reality, they would probably just open the doors if they felt that was appropriate.
So Norm, I have a question.
Sure.
With all the requirements associated with ADA in today's environment,
Yes.
why weren't these required as a part of our construction, new construction? Can you answer that?
Sure. It has to do with the size of the facility and the number of employees that will be working there. It's not required by current building code to provide that. The doors are designed for the ADA compliance. So, I mean, the doors have the proper hardware on them. They have the proper ease of opening and closing, but they don't have the automatic door openers. So if it was a large office building with thousands of people coming in and out, they probably would be required by code. But because of the relative lower use of this building, the code does not require it.
So my follow-up question, I guess, thank you, that helps a lot. My follow-up question would be in terms of usage. Obviously, I think this is very important. And, as I look at, what's been proposed, I think about the EOC and public access there, particularly maybe with disabled citizens. I could see that. I don't know what we have in terms of employees at this time.
We have no one at this time that requires this in the way of an employee, but that could change with someone falling and breaking a leg. Even on crutches, doors can be hard to maneuver through.
And I'll just add that if we did have a future employee, it could be a reasonable accommodation where we would be forced to do this for an employee that is potentially has a permanent. So if we were to hire someone in a wheelchair, for example, in the future, we might have to do this.
Right.
So just wanted to point that out from an HR standpoint.
You should consider board access to the EOC as well. So if we have future meetings there.
Yes.
Yeah, some of us are getting older.
Norm, as far as the locations, down at the public entrance, you have the exterior door and then you have the door into the lobby.
Yes.
You said it wasn't circled, but there'd be the door leading into the EOC. But between the EOC and the lobby, I'm seeing another door. Would we want, for consistency, to have that door as well?
Well, we didn't. Part of this last minute is literally, we were yesterday modifying this drawing. You can see it says 6 doors marked for auto openers, and there's, we're talking about 7. Our thinking was that anyone from the lobby would be escorted by an employee of some kind, but you're right. If you're going into the EOC, you may not be escorted. You may just be buzzed in by reception and allowed to go the hallway into the EOC. There's another, if you took a right down the hallway, there's another door that is access protected. And so you would still keep your security for the dispatch. So potentially you're correct that we would need to add another one. I know Dawn and Deanna were the ones that discovered this and have worked most on it. And I think they're both on. Perhaps one of them could make a comment on that door going from the lobby to the hallway. Dawn or Deanna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Norm, I didn't want to interrupt you, but the drawing that Rachel had up earlier was the most current. And I know you and I had some emails going back and forth, and I didn't see your changes, and I don't think you saw mine.
Okay.
Dawn and Jerry and I had a little powwow last night after that first draft went out, and we talked about that EOC door. So in the breezeway, when you enter for the employee entrance or for the main entrance, they have what Norm's referred to as an airlock. So you have to have those 2 doors. So each of those would require the auto access for the ADA. So that was 4 of the doors. And then our discussion was, if we had an employee with an injury, a foot surgery, a hip surgery, a broken leg, or somebody who has mobility issues, it really wouldn't be feasible for another dispatcher to assist them around the building because we don't really have that kind of resources. So what doors would really require access for them. So we determine the employee's entrance, one of the restrooms, and that southernmost restroom is ADA. It's one that has a shower in it. It's larger. And then entrance into the dispatch floor. And I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, the
Dan,
the-
Dan, I think Jim's question was from the lobby to the EOC. There are two doors that separate the lobby from the EOC, and wouldn't both of those need to be have the automatic openers if you're going to allow EOC access?
This is Jerry. It certainly was part of our conversation as we were, looking at what the need was. We were looking at those two locations. Part of it was, discussing, can we be frugal? Are those, certainly those would be needed to be considered, but what would the usage be like? And the thought was, especially for the ones that Deanna just described, access to those and use of those would really be employee-based and really be a one-on-one situation. For public entrance, people coming in, the idea would be we could probably shortcut it a little bit if needed to save the additional costs on those two doors, in that we would be able to get them into the building, get into the lobby on their own. And then if it's a meeting, if it's an access, there'll be other people in the building that would be able to provide assistance in getting through the other two doors. But if you're going to go, all of the way, certainly those two doors should be part of the consideration. We're trying to weigh the cost versus how would the building, how would those accesses be used?
Can I also point out, wouldn't the kitchen door just be propped open most of the time? So would that really need it? Just throwing that out there.
It's hard to say. Certainly that was part of the conversation as well. If you have a door, it kind of, the thought would be you would want to have them closed, but the reality of it is it's not. I don't believe it has security access to the kitchen, so it's just a fire door. And whether or not it would be something that would be allowed to be propped open when we're occupied and in use, then it's another one that would be on that iffy scale of whether or not it would need an activation or a actuator or not.
I don't think that you could legally prop that kitchen door open unless it was tied into the fire alarm system. Jim probably can elaborate more on that, but
I can't remember if that's a fire rated corridor or not, because it's a fully sprinklered building. Now, and the codes loosened up the corridor requirements, the fire rated corridor requirements in lieu of sprinklers. And I'd have to look at the plans. I can't remember.
Okay.
Jerry, Deanna, do you guys, or Norm, do you remember if that's a fire rated corridor?
I don't off the top of my head, no.
It would just seem to me that would be a likely spot for a fire to occur anyway. So I would not be a proponent of propping that door open. I never liked door props anyway, but that's just me.
They could put a magnetic open device tied into the fire alarm system.
Yeah.
Would be another option. So it could be propped open.
Well, to move this along, I guess my thoughts are, people are disabled. Do they have these accommodations in their own home? I mean, if they're able to come to work, I suspect they're getting around their house, in the bathroom, getting to their car, getting here. So I guess to what extent we need to make all these accommodations, I guess I'd be a little bit skeptical. I'd maybe suggest the main entrance door into the lobby would be one, and maybe the two doors for the employee entrance to get inside the building. But beyond there, either staff could help them if need be, or like I said, if they're in good enough shape to get there, they should be able to be good enough shape to get to the dispatch floor into the bathroom. and kitchen, but maybe that's just me, but I'll leave it at that. I don't know if there's any further discussion or anybody wants to make a motion concerning moving forward on this.
Well, I just would like to make one more comment, Sheriff, as well. I mean, I appreciate the work that's been done. I'd like, you know, the committee to really take a hard look at this and hold down costs where they can. You know, as I think about the entrances, you know, public entrances like you, Sheriff, I'm even wondering about the employee access. And I say that because could the employees use the public access? My understanding is this is a facility, it's locked down. It's not as though, it's not like City Hall or in the county administration building where people can come and go as they please. Having said that, my understanding is also, isn't there security provided around the facility? I mean, where you need access to actually even get in. So those are thoughts that I'd like to share. And again, I believe it's important to have these ADA accesses where necessary. But again, I too would advocate that we try to, you know, keep them to a minimum where we can.
All right. Is anybody ready, prepared to make a motion? I think we do need to kind of decide on this probably today, so Norm has some clear direction moving forward. I think we're getting to the point where they're going to be, I don't know if electrical's done yet, but sheetrock's going to be going up and needs to get this done, I think, ASAP.
Right, and I would agree with that. If there is no decision today, then it's probably going to be constructed as it's designed, and any changes would be like a retrofit. So
can you
appreciate all the comments and the consideration, but it would be helpful to drive this to a decision if possible.
So can you address my questions, Norm, with regard to employee access, public access, and the security, and whether or not employees could use the public access or citizens could use the employee access, disabled citizens?
Yeah, I would think that we would not have, it would not be very successful to have citizens using the employee access. You could have employees using the public access. They would the issue there is going to be that there would then have to be some way of activating the automatic door openers if you're going with door openers from the outside, because you've only got the reception basically during business hours. So like on after hours and on weekends, during the shift changes, you wouldn't have someone there to let them in. So if it was possibly a place where you could scan it and activate it from the outside, the employees could make use of those two doors. That would get them into the lobby. They would still have to get from the lobby into the center, which would require two more doors to go through. So
Norm, can you refresh us on where is the accessible parking located on the site?
there's accessible parking immediately south of the building for the public. And then there is two accessible parking stalls on the covered employee parking area. So there are two stalls at the east end of the building where the employee entry is, and there's two, I believe, south of the public entrance.
Okay.
All righty. Does anybody have a desire to make a motion on this?
I was just going to add real quick, not to drag it on any further, but if you decide to only do employee or public entry, you're potentially looking at 2 more doors that we didn't put automated actuators on to make full access to inside the building. If you were to move forward, I guess I would suggest maybe reducing it to 5. You could do 2 at the public, 2 at the employee entrance, and maybe the door to the comm center. Part of it, you're going to spend a little bit of money in the architecture work if we move forward, and then at that point, it's a smaller piece. You're 7,500 rough guess coming from the architect or from the contractor per unit that you're going to install. So I guess some of it is the design work. Are we going to spend the money? If not, then it doesn't make any sense to do any of them. But if you're looking to save some money in the overall, you may look at reducing it to maybe 5 locations.
Brad, the question that always comes to my mind is, we've got doors that are ADA compliant already. The building meets code requirements. Tell me again, I guess I haven't been convinced there's a need. It sounds like it's more of a nice to have rather than a requirement. And I mean, I understand if we're going to have them later on, now's the time to do it. But I haven't really heard a convincing argument that we're going to have to make those changes later on. We have a code compliant building already. So
Is that correct, Norm? Dennis's summation of that?
It is correct that code does not require any of these actuated doors for this building, for its use and its occupancy.
Okay.
So it's more or less a nice to have rather than a real critical element, because the hardware, the doors are already ADA compliant, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I'll just make a comment though, that if we were to have somebody who needed accommodations, a future employee, and this was on the agenda and we were trying to make it so that this person could move throughout the building as everybody else did reasonably, I would be in favor of it.
Okay. Is there any further comments? I'll open the floor for a motion.
I'm going to make a motion, Chief, Sheriff, that we proceed perhaps with the minimal number of doors that would be absolutely necessary to provide that access. And I think, Jerry kind of alluded to perhaps 5. I say that because I down the road, we could well see a need for this access. And, I think as Norm mentioned, if we're going to do it, now's the time. Perhaps penny wise and pound foolish, but I'll at least make the motion.
Do you want to put a number on that, Kurt, like 5 doors?
I believe that was the 5 that Jerry referred to in his comments just prior to Dennis speaking.
Okay. We do have a motion on the floor.
And just for, I'll wait for discussion. Sorry, sure.
Hamilton, I'd second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to clarify, the 5 that we're talking about is more to do with the employee entrance and the critical areas that they would need to access? Or are we still talking about public access up front?
I thought it was the 2 employee, the public entrances for the EEOC and the comm center. And then there was one inside the corridor or something that was provide full access for those that needed it.
Well, I think that I cut it down to 5. Really, it's hard to, if we're gonna say yes, 6 is really probably the minimum that we would be looking at. I think the 2 main public, one on the dispatch floor, the 2 to get people in the building, and the 1 restroom, as described on the drawing.
Okay. We currently have a motion and a second. Do you need to clarify your motion, Kurt, do you think, in light of Jerry's comments, or you want to stick with 5?
Sure, I can go with 6.
I'm good with that.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
So at the risk of being Grinch-like, I'm assuming if we approve this recommendation, that's a bit of a rebuke to the current code that says they aren't necessary. We're saying, yes, it is. The code needs to be changed then, right? I mean, if it's adequate without these automatic door openers for people with disabilities to navigate the building, because the code says it should be adequate. We're saying, no, we need the extra features. And I would imagine, we need to be, the city should be re-looking at the code. Either the code's adequate or it's not adequate. Maybe I'm being too simplistic in relying on codes to be protecting public health and safety. But if it's adequate now, we're not talking about a massive increase in the number of employees that would trigger the higher technology. I mean, we're talking, let's face it, the estimate is 75. It's going to be closer to 100,000. We know how these projects, escalate. So, is it worth $100,000 to upgrade all the doors to exceed code standards?
And I think you raise a really good issue, Dennis. I can't disagree with that at all. I guess I was thinking more in terms of, I'm trying to grapple in my own mind how this meets the code. And I say that in terms of if we had a disabled employee, if we did, and perhaps they were wheelchair bound, how the facility as it is meets the ADA requirement. Is it because the doors open easily, or because it's assumed we're smaller and therefore we could provide an employee to allow access for other disabled employees? How does that work?
Okay. Well, we do have a motion and a second for 6 doors. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll put it up to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 I
3 ayes. All opposed, same sign, say aye.
Aye. Negative.
Okay. Hearing none, I believe the vote was 3-1. I did not vote. You put me down as an aye. So the motion passes, and Norm, you have the clear direction to move forward then on that with 6 doors.
Yes, I have direction. Thank you.
Okay. And just the last, I don't know if there's any more on the facility, Norm, that in the radio update.
Just real quickly on the facility. The last update I gave you, we were looking at a completion date, substantial completion date of March 30th with the snow and the rain the snow we had for 1 week and the rain that we've had here recently. The contractor is updating that schedule to see if there's any impact. He's also gotten some updates on materials deliveries. That's just sort of a heads up, and that's really all I know. I don't know if the schedule is moving at all, and if it is, which way it's moving. So But I just wanted you to know it is a little bit in flux right now. We're taking another look at that.
Okay,
And
Is
then
there any-
radio update, I'll turn over to Deanna, hopefully, if there is any.
looks like Deanna disappeared. What have you done with her?
Yeah, it looks like she stepped out of the room for a minute.
Okay, well, maybe just to expedite things and move along. Norm, did you have an update on the BB site? There was a discussion about potential purchase of a tower up there a few months ago, and Norm was giving an
Yes.
update.
Yes, and there was a question about the, from the board on how much revenue would be, could be received from owning that site. Well, since that board meeting, when we talked about it, the owner basically gave us a deadline to respond, which we weren't able to meet, which the board knew about. And he has since basically moved on, said he was going to go with another seller. We have not checked to see whether he's actually sold that site or not. But the other thing that happened was we did get our tower analysis completed on that tower. We found that it was structurally insufficient and needed basically repairs, to the extent that it was likely that it would be cheaper to build a new tower than to try to make use of the existing tower. Also, the building that held the equipment has been leaking for some time, so there's a lot of weather damage and a very musty smell inside the building. So we're not sure it's even for sale anymore or who owns it. And it didn't look like it would be a very good purchase. And
Okay, well, it sounds like that's a non-issue then. See Deanna pop back in. We're just looking, Deanna, for a brief radio update.
We had an issue up at Abernathy with a microwave during the snow. That's been addressed, but we will need to look at replacing that microwave along with 2 other critical microwaves that are at end of life in spring. The electrical permits have been obtained for Baker's Corner and Castle Rock. They're going to try to get the work done by the end of the month, pending weather. That's all I have.
Okay, just a quick question on the Spillman transition. In light of the delays with the building, are we in any issues with the contract with Spillman implementation, any late fees or anything like that? Or are we still on track with them to get the Spillman up and running with the new center?
I haven't had any conversations with anyone about any kind of late fees on that, so I'm not familiar with that, if that were to come about because of delays. I did change the training schedule from the end of, I think we had it in March, to June. And we disseminated that information to the law and fire points of contact, and they have master schedules that they've been signing all their folks up for. And then we have one internally for the dispatchers.
Okay, so for Spillman and AdCom on their contracts, they're aware of the delays and there's no issues on their end then with the delays, or?
Yeah, not at this point.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Moving along, just real quickly, the executive director recruitment, we're gonna, after this meeting's over, those on the committee are gonna hold over on a Zoom to talk about the initial review of candidates. The deadline for initial turn-in of applications was last week, and we received 13. It's posted as being open until filled. And as far as I know, we're still sitting at 13. And we're going to have a meeting, like I said, after this to talk about the process moving forward from here, review of candidates and what the next steps will be at this point. So I know, are there any questions on that process at this point? Okay, well, we're hearing none. We'll move along. Approval of MOU. And I know staff can post that. This is kind of a piece of unfinished business from last year that we agreed with the guild on how people are paid on understaffed pay. Currently, as it now stands, if they, during certain hours of the day, if they're working with less than four, 3 people on the floor, that everybody working gets time and a half due to being short-staffed. Issue has come up on occasion that one of the 3 people is already in on overtime, and do they get any additional premium for that? And we'd agreed, and I think the board had signed off on this, that somebody in on overtime would get an additional 0.5. So essentially they would be working at 2 1/4 time in those circumstances. So this, we talked to the guild about, and actually even our negotiations yesterday tweaked it a little bit, but they're in agreement with this. And this is slightly different than what was put out with the packet, I believe. And I don't know if Janelle has anything to add to that.
Yeah, we just, based on negotiations yesterday, we updated, just clarifying the actual rates. 0.5 above salary, for example, we clarified that, and then 2.25. And then we also removed, in the previous language, it had specific dates, or had specific time periods, and it kind of tried to define understaffed, but depending on this, we have actually a busy season and a slow season, and we have different minimum staffing levels depending on what season it is. So I clarified and just said if it falls below minimum staffing rather than put the specific times. And then another addition, clarifying, because there was a question that came up about this, is if a dispatch supervisor covers that shift, that means that we're not understaffed. The dispatcher supervisor working on console counts as a dispatcher. So we just added that language to clarify as well. So just a couple kind of small, subtle changes, still same intention. And then, like Brad said, this is what we're currently doing. The guild agrees to it, and we essentially had already agreed to it. We just hadn't circled back with the board, unfinished business, to get this officially passed and signed. This is an MOU that would go onto the current contract. We are in negotiations, and in negotiations, we will have this language just in the contract itself. So in the meantime, though, we just need something official that's passed so we can pay properly.
Okay, is there any questions about this MOU? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion that we approve this. Are there any questions concerning the terms of this, or?
Can you clarify just one more time? This is what we're already doing.
Correct.
It's just not written down.
Correct. So this is just kind of a formality.
I'll make a motion.
I will second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. And I see that the agreement there they had up is hot off the press, even updated names. on it.
Apparently.
And that was,
Yeah.
that was quick. Okay, next thing we have up is a executive session, and we'll limit that to 15 minutes. I guarantee it. Don't we, Frank? We'll guarantee. Can you want to speak to the reason for the executive session? And
yes, the reason for it is a potential labor dispute. And I agree, I don't think it'll take more than 15 minutes. Might take less.
okay, well, if Rachel can move the appropriate parties into the executive session. Starting at, it looks like I have 11:08.
You guys seeing the invite? Sure. Dennis, is everybody coming back? Should I close the room? Or are they still talking? Oh, it looks like they're all coming back.
They're coming back.
Okay. You're always so quick.
I can leave a meeting, I'll try to as fast as I can. Looks like we're back.
Okay, I was muted. We're back. In general session, the live stream is back on. We had executive session, discuss a current pending grievance. And next item, we're gonna adjourn unless there's other business and go into a closed session concerning contract negotiations with the 911 Guild. So
Sheriff, if I may clarify, the reason should have been a discussion with legal counsel about current or potential litigation and discussion with legal counsel about legal risk of current or proposed action. I apologize for misstating.
okay, as long as we have that on record. If there's no other open issues, we will adjourn this meeting, then go into a closed session about the contract negotiations, followed after that by a committee meeting on the executive director recruitment process. So if you're nothing, we'll stand adjourned until looks like January 26th at 10 a.m. So I don't know if Rachel can move